Now, they sell me on this show as the real, most interesting person in the world. Like, I do things on music, sports, in addition to politics and current events. One thing I have not done a lot is fashion and style, for good reason. I don't know that much about it. I do a lot with Jewish stuff because that's who I am. I'm not going to pretend otherwise, and it's what's interesting to me. But that's only part of the show. But here is an opportunity to sort of use that Jewish angle to talk about something sort of in the news related to fashion and style. And I have someone who's accomplished a lot, very talented and knowledgeable, on the other line with me. Her name is Libby Jonas, and she runs something called FrumFash.com, FrumFash, which is about style and fashions for women who don't want to basically show off 98% of their bodies, as Orthodox women, Jewish women, are reluctant to do. But anyhow, she's joining me, and there's been an article in the forward, which I've been critical of as a publication. Basically, it sucks on Jewish issues and current events. It's liberal and all that crap. But there's no reason to think that they're not onto something when it comes to things like fashion. And there was a piece called "Why This Orthodox Layering Trend Has to Stop." And it's by someone named Michelle Honig, and I read it. It's a worthwhile piece, and Libby's joining me now to talk about it. Thank you for coming on, Libby.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's take this from the perspective of, say, an older blue-collar guy in Oklahoma who doesn't even know any Jewish people. Let's go from the very beginning on this and talk about the whole concept of frum dress, where you're coming from, what your goals are, and then we'll get to the issue brought up in this article.
Okay. So a little bit, without going into too much depth, I basically kind of fell in love with the concept of going back to my roots as a Jew. And I, discovered Orthodox Judaism, and this kind of all happened in a place where there wasn't really a community, so I didn't really see firsthand how women really dressed, besides maybe like the hierarchy of the organization I was a part of.
Where were you living at the time?
Rabbi's wife. That was in Tallahassee.
Oh, you grew up in Tallahassee, or you were living there?
I didn't. I was just in college.
Okay, got it.
Florida State, so I was in college, yeah. Okay. So eventually I moved down to South Florida, and I was kind of exposed to more of a Jewish community, and I did see firsthand what this woman who wrote this article is talking about, which is the concept of a shell, which is basically wearing whatever you want, from tube tops to tank tops to low cut, dresses, and wearing a shirt underneath the dress. So they feel like, oh, I can wear anything. But the thing is that what she says in the article is it ends up cheapening it. In my opinion, as I consider myself somewhat of an artist or a visual, I don't know. So I basically thought, this doesn't look good, it's not visually appealing, and it's not, something that people want to look at.
But it's basically cheap. Let me just refresh people. Orthodox women really don't show off much of their bodies. You can see the shape of the woman pretty well. You can wear something pretty much skin tight, but just the skin has to be covered, which is a little bit of a contradiction, but that's sort of the thing, and it's become more of an issue in recent years. I think I'm on firm ground there, right, Libby?
Yes. So women can there's different levels of how women dress,
right.
And within like some women are much more modest, they only wear loose clothes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, some women do kind of push the envelope and wear things that are skin tight. So anyway, going back to, I lived in Miami Beach, I saw these women, the way that they dressed, and I felt like, coming from a place where I felt that Orthodox Judaism had a lot to offer in the way of Jews going back to their roots, which I see happening so much now, which is awesome. I felt that some of the fashion statements that women were making within these communities just were turning women away from joining that culture, because it's just so, I don't want to say it's hideous, but sometimes it can be, without being too politically incorrect. Right. So I kind of had this idea that I was toying with for a while to either open a store or do something. I really didn't know how to go about it. Mm-hmm. So I kind of just created sort of a movement that inspired people to be fashionable within these confines of dressing modestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So with
it
that,
it makes sense. I mean, there's also an element of age appropriateness and what's appropriate for one's body, which going outside the Jewish community, I think, is lost on a lot of women and probably men in this country. I mean, you see a lot of overweight 58-year-old guys dressing like they're 14, and you can certainly probably say the same for women. And I mean, I just want to add that in there. And by the way, in the YouTube version of this, you will see that I'm putting a lot of the images Libby has given me in here, so you can look at this. If you're listening on SoundCloud or, on the app, you're not going to be able to look at that. This is one you definitely want to go onto YouTube to see the version of, because eventually I will add those pictures later today. Sorry, I had to put that in there. Okay, so you're not even that observant. It was just sort of a niche. You were exposed to it. It was a niche that you think was not being fulfilled. And so you said it can be a lot more fashionable than what you're seeing.
So I wouldn't say that I'm not observant.
Oh, okay. I don't know you that well.
Practice.
Okay.
I practice what I preach. I
Right.
do, and I actually lately have been trying to make a huge effort to do that, because I do believe in what I do, and I kind of have been like eating, breathing, and sleeping FrumFash, because I do want to spread the message, and I do want, to spread this beautiful concept with people, which goes deeper than just fashion and beauty. I do believe in the concept of, art drawing people into something deeper. It's not just a means to an end. I really truly believe that. So if you're you could call it an influencer or someone who's in the spotlight, I do believe that you should have a deeper message to spread. It shouldn't just be leading to a black hole or leading to, something empty. So
yeah, you know what? Let me ask you, first of all, I stand corrected on that. Another thing is, can you explain the whole concept of women dressing modestly? A lot of people may assume it's like Islam, where it's like just one step toward putting on a whole veil and covering the whole thing in because men can't control themselves. And I know very well it's a lot more than that. Maybe you could just explain a little bit about what the philosophy is behind it.
So there is definitely an element of controlling men a little bit. I mean, being a feminist, I do see the difference between men and women in that sense. I think that there is a sense of fashion appealing to a primal place in a man's body. And I do like the idea of using beauty to channel something good, like I was saying before. But, I don't like the idea of men looking at women and it creating a sense of misogyny or even worse within a man, because he sees what he wants and I like the idea of men viewing women as something valuable and regal, maybe even a little bit,
Great choice of word. Yeah, so it's a dignity thing almost, sort of, in a way that you may appeal to men's sexual nature. Believe me, I spend a lot of time on the beach. By being in a bathing suit or wearing almost nothing, but I guess it's a respect versus stimulation thing as well.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe this comes from personal experience, but I do believe that there is danger in appealing to a man's primal being. I think that can lead to not great things, let's just say. I don't want to go too much in depth.
Right. No, I think people understand what you're talking about there. Okay, so let's get to the article in the foreword by someone, Michelle Honig, I think it was. And the article is really harsh on these shells, which I guess people have to see. And what I found interesting was how it originated with a Turkish company, of all places, that was not known for particularly modest dress. And, I guess they've only been a big thing in the last 10 years or so. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, obviously the woman who wrote this article is probably somewhat of a creative, and as a creative myself, I can understand why she would come at it from this sort of angry, critical approach, because it's sort of anti-creative to just throw, as a woman who says, I want to be modest, and I want to be, I want to present myself like Kate Middleton, like I want to be beautiful, but, treasured and honored as a woman. It's sort of lazy and uncreative to just take any old, dress that normally you would show your cleavage or,
Mm-hmm.
show your back or show your legs, and just put this sort of skin tight, often skin colored, which I think is insane, shirt underneath that dress and create, this aesthetic that is just not working for anybody, in my opinion, as well. I'm totally on board with her.
So basically, the dresses were designed for one particular purpose. You can't just substitute so easily. It's I'm trying to think of an analogy.
Right. So use your creativity and use your creativity and take some time looking for something that sends out the message to the universe that you want to send out. As far as what you choose to put on, maybe like, a dress that is higher in the front, or whatever you choose to wear. But it is a bit lazy. But in their defense, a lot of women don't really have time, and stores aren't really catered for modest apparel a lot of the time. So I kind of understand why women do it, especially if they're not incredibly creative or into fashion. It makes sense, but at the same time, you want to sell something so beautiful, which is your values and Orthodox Judaism, maybe to people who could really benefit from knowing about this. If you want to, it's almost like everybody's selling something, everybody really is. And especially as Jews, that's why we don't wear a kippah in a non-kosher restaurant or in a situation where you're doing something unethical. Ultimately, everybody is, trying to be an example for whatever they stand for. So you should show it, in the way you present yourself.
Yeah, not just try to do what other people would wear who are not in that and thinking that it's okay just wearing this skin-tight shell. I guess that's the point of the article. It would be, here's my analogy. It's like wearing a tuxedo if you're a guy with just like a plain blue button-down shirt. Like, that goes all the way, that you can wear maybe with a suit or a sport jacket, but it wouldn't work for a tuxedo. I suppose that's the best I can do.
I mean, of course that, but I think even like, more so what I'm trying to say is they use beautiful women to sell things in advertising all the time. I mean, something as random as like selling tape or selling a car. Like they'll use a woman because it's something beautiful. So what you should wear if you're trying to sell a deeper value, you should present yourself in a beautiful way. That isn't just hard on the eyes, which would be a shell.
And here's a point that was made in the article. They're made of polyester and spandex. You can't really wear a nice dress with something polyester and spandex. It just doesn't work. Am I missing something?
It definitely, that's a whole other conversation. But yes, I mean, if you are wearing something, women will wear dresses that are, $1,500 dresses that are designer because, they can afford that type of dress, but yeah, they will wear something under it that costs $25. And I mean, ultimately, that ends up being 30% of the entire outfit. So yes, I mean, make a little effort. Like maybe search a little harder for something that comes already modest. And a lot of women who I do associate with, they don't do this. They don't wear these.
Oh, good.
But
take me through
it's not the end of the world.
No, I know. I mean, there are bigger issues, especially if you're in Houston right now. But it's an interesting conversation. And what has been the growth? Like, did 20 years ago anyone wear these, or were they very rare? When did this become a frequent part of people's wardrobes in the Orthodox Jewish community, at least?
I definitely think it comes from the societal influence of wanting to be, look like J-Lo or dress like, these types of icons. You want to wear what they wear. So you say, hey, I can wear what they wear. I'm just going to throw this shirt under it and, make it modest. But my philosophy is just a bit different. And if you do check out my blog, FrumFash.com, you will see that I really make an attempt to be creative with the way that I cover, myself and my models that I use. And I really, I try not to, I don't think I've ever really used a shell. So you can see the creativity that goes into just dressing modestly and how it does end up looking very beautiful in the end. And a lot of people don't even notice that my blog is modest. Right. I mean, it's obviously from the name, but a lot of people say, oh, wow, I really like your blog because, I wouldn't even say this girl's modest. I would say I like the way she dresses. I like her look,
And one other thing is it's sort of weather related. I guess it's a little harder to wear the shells in Florida, particularly in the summer, because it's just a little hotter and humider than it is in a lot of places. Or is that not? Or are they pretty? Are they pretty cool to wear?
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, it's definitely interesting that you say that, because since I relocated here from LA, I do see a lot of women kind of slacking off as far as how modest they actually dress, even in Orthodox circles, because it is so hot. And not only hot, it's humid.
Oh,
and
especially.
You just end up being sweaty and hot. And so there are people who are kind of straying away, but, I think that it's just, you just have to stay true to your values and what you believe.
Yeah, but I'm saying what might work in New York in the fall or the spring just wouldn't necessarily work in Miami in the middle of summer. I mean, you might want to go with something looser fitting, I would imagine, that time of year. Okay, so say people are convinced and are really wowed by what you've had to say, and they're saying, I want to learn more about how to dress a little more modestly, a little more dignified, I guess some would say. Can you give them a little advice, and also how to follow you and get in touch with you as we wind down?
Sure, how to dress more modestly. I like the idea of it coming from definitely a mindset. I like that you say, women, if it resonates with you, that's awesome. I'm actually about to launch something that's going to make it easier for women to dress more modestly and, have more access to what I'm doing, which we can talk about maybe next time. But, there's ways you can wear longer skirts, or wear skirts in general if you don't wear skirts, and just be conscious of, saving your goodies, if you will, for, not for everybody. It doesn't need to be for everybody. Focusing on your inner beauty as opposed to your outer beauty every once in a while or all the time, depending on your level. So
Great point.
And FrumFash, you can go to the website, or you can go, I have an Instagram account that I update pretty often, so it would be the same thing, FrumFash, just FrumFash on Instagram. I'm not really so much on any other platforms at the moment.
Well, you need those pictures for what you do. Twitter you can put pictures on, but Instagram's probably better for the kind of thing you do. Okay, Libby Jonas, thank you for joining me today.
Of course. Thanks, Adam.
Missed an episode? We have you covered.